Also, that he was just another entitled rich guy who might kill someone because he has a tiny dong.
I can make way better dick jokes. Piece of paper. Start with the eyes. Then we have the head. Yeah, that's right. 2 lines. Big, massive snozzer. Then we have the mouth. And then we have a Squidward.
Bad media is something that viewers do not need. Now, I like bad media, not like them, but I like them out of curiosity. I remember back in the day where we all used to think that Trollland was the worst movie ever made because of its shit animation and lazy effects. Just seriously, what is this? I vomit. But yeah, in recent times, we've been getting not just bad movies, but bad shows, such as Hoops, The Prince, The Santa Inc., and then in 2023, this year where we are right now, we have Velma. And for those of you who don't know what Velma is, it is a spin-off of Scooby-Doo franchise. And it is, in fact, one of the most infamous shows that has ever existed. And it only has 11 people liking it, a 1.5 out of 10 on IMDb, and a 40% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and so on. I remember back in 2022, my mates were talking about it, and personally, I wasn't really that interested. But when the show was released and the amount of hate that it was getting, it actually kicked my interest. So I watched all 10 episodes, and I was left with a jaw-dropped face, like, oh my god, what the fuck did I just watch? Lads, you can call Hoops, Santa Inc. and The Prince bad, but fuck me, this was an abomination of a show. First off, the characters, even though they don't look like the original 1969 characters, but they also have completely different personalities, and they're not really that likeable. They are just persistingly nasty to one another. Velma, despite being the main protagonist, she is tainted with a lot of flaws, and her personality is like the nails scraping a chalkboard. She says stuff that not a single person on this planet can relate to, and it just gets worse and worse and worse because she constantly talks about white people. She constantly insults people, judges their bodies, judges their race, judges their gender, everything. And it's so irritating. And what irritates me even more is the entire show, not just the main character, but the whole show. The whole show is messed up, and the creators behind it were just lying trolls. The creators said that they'll be careful with Velma's character in this show, and they won't show anything that makes you question or makes you feel uncomfortable. Question or comfortable my ass, because most of the girls are constantly sexualized in this show, and they're all about fucking 15 years old. 15? Look, I get that it's a cartoon, but that's not really an excuse to have all of this, because there's a limit to how much people can take in. Contrast that with Big Mouth, which does the exact same thing, but the difference there is that Big Mouth was actually there to teach kids the lessons of growing up. Velma, on the other hand, was meant there to is there to teach us a crime story. But yeah, despite having a mystery story, they seem more eye-glued to the love relationships and the sex values. I thought Beastars was bad in terms of having constant sexual fetishes in it, but at least the characters in that show were all of age. And can some of these studios just stop sexualising young children? No wonder I don't watch Family Guy anymore. Velma, oh my god, her character, she is the worst cartoon character I've ever had to experience. She's racist, hypocritical, and incredibly judgmental, and it sucks even more because she's never acted like this as long as I've known her, and she's not even a villain. She's meant to be the good protagonist character. Of course, main characters don't have to be 100% good. They can be tainted with flaws at times. But like I said before, there's a limit. I mean, I think a good example on how to have a bad character but still popular with audience would be Gus from Berserk. Gus is a very mean-spirited character with so much bitterness inside him, but you can't really hate Gus because he has a reason. He has an actual reason to be an arsehole. Velma doesn't really have a bad backstory. She's just a dick for the sake of being a dick. And most of her jokes, are just centered around white people and meta humour. The white man jokes are not really executed in a way that feels funny. It's all executed in a way that just feels offensive. Fred is probably my least favourite character, as he is the punching bag of the show, the main punching bag of the show, and the creators use him as a way of getting their point across when it comes to white men. Look, I get that white people did some seriously nasty stuff to black people in the past, but all that's behind us now. We're better people now. I mean, there are still a few racists, but we're not as bad as we were back then. But that doesn't mean you should flaunt it on TV or make fun of us, because it's so unnecessary and very woke. And nobody likes woke stuff, especially in their cartoons, because it just makes the whole enterprise look very mean-spirited. Shaggy is now called Norville for copyright reasons, and even though he doesn't look like him, he's the most likeable character, or once was the most likeable character out of all of them, but they ended up ruining him at the end by turning him into a colossal bellend. I don't really have much to say about Daphne, other than she's a badass typical love interest for Velma. Now, I know people and critics combined often complain about her hair being orange, saying why is it orange? And it doesn't really surprise me, because I have seen Asian people with blonde and orange hair in the past. So it doesn't really surprise me in any way. But after years of bitching and whining to one another, they eventually make up at the end. No, I'm not kidding. Velma and Daphne have this weird relationship with each other because they act very rude to one another constantly, yet they somehow fancy each other. And it's not just Daphne and Velma, it's also Velma in love with Norville, Velma in love with Fred, and so on. And it just really confuses the life out of me. And I personally don't think that Velma and Daphne should be getting together because of how toxic their relationship is. And unlike all the other animated love interests or love stories that I've seen in the past, this one is just so ugly. If done right, cartoon couples can look absolutely adorable based on their appearance, their personality, and the relationship with one another, and that's why they work. Here in Velma, it just doesn't work because of how the characters act and all that. Now let's talk about the voice acting. Now, in profile, the voice acting is alright, but the stuff that they say just makes it painfully awkward to listen to. And sometimes the person's voice can change. For example,
chart, she's constructed a sort of mental wall to block out the past 2 years.
If Dia's memories do return, it will be within 7...
I don't know whether it's just me thinking that, but you get my point. Now, I know most of you don't really give a fuck about this show, so I'm just going to tell you what happens in the end. So, it turns out that the villain is Fred's mum, so that she can take Velma's brain and put into Fred's body so that she can run the place, because in her eyes, she thinks that Velma is very intelligent and would work better as a rich white man. I just can't get by how delusional this show is, and it's made even worse when Velma starts giving a speech to Fred by judging his race and saying that they have massive egos. And I actually felt quite offended by that, to be fair, and I was nearly at the breaking point with it. I mean, sure, people can argue by saying that Velma was only saying that stuff to make Fred outrage and, break free and all that. I mean, I can understand that by some degree, but considering that Velma has been treating people like shit and judging their race and body throughout the entire show, it seems very unlikely, and it doesn't really make it look like they were trying to set a plot. It almost felt like they were trying to prove a point of how bad white people are. So yeah, after escaping, Fred decides not to kill Velma and instead brings her on to stop the murderer. They eventually stop Fred's mum, and then they celebrate at the end, and that's just about it. I don't really care. Next up, we have its humour.
You know what 420 is, right?
Yeah, it's code for adults who still watch cartoons.
The humour mainly consists of meta, toilet humour, social political commentary, unreasonable shock humour, and outdated memes. I freaked out when I seen one of the characters do a dab in the show, and the dab has been dead since fucking 2017. I thought the Sonic movie was bad in terms of having dead trends in it, but fuck me, that was... Velma's takes it to a whole new level. So yeah, at the end of the day, Velma's just a bad show, and despite having good animation is not enough to save it. And I know some of you may be saying, oh, it's a good show by just using the animation as an excuse, but like I said, there's nothing saving it. It has bad humour, awful characters, a weak plot, and it just promotes pedophilia. So yeah, Velma's a truly awful show, and I wish the sequel was I wish season 2 was cancelled. So yeah, that's my review. I'm Star Invader, and I'll see you all in next time.